the game. You don't play to just play it. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm for you. Can't wait. Let's go.
All right, what's up, everybody? You already know what time it is. It's Monday night. We're here for the cheap seats. No Gene this week, so I guess I'll be hosting it. Jory will be in a little bit, but we do have a special guest to the show. We got Godfrey here making his first appearance. So, Godfrey, how are you doing tonight?
Doing all right. Exciting day of football to talk about yesterday, and looking forward to taking some cheap shots in the cheap sheets, or from the cheap seats, should I say?
That's what we do. It's all good. Chase, how are you? I mean, after yesterday, obviously you must be doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, man. Crazy weekend. Went to St. Louis for an independent wrestling show. Watched the Royal Rumble, and then got to watch football all day yesterday. So and the Chiefs won. So I'm on cloud nine, man. Cloud nine.
Absolutely.
Should be on cloud nine.
What's going on? Yeah, it should be.
I mean, listen, I hate when the Chiefs make it this far, and it's not because I hate the Chiefs. I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Andy Reid. Being an Eagles fan, he helped turn this franchise around. I hate it because the radio hosts around here and national radio hosts love to say we chased Andy Reid out of town, which is so untrue.
So untrue.
And correct me if I'm wrong here. And he brought, I believe, Brett Veach with him from the Eagles. He's not the GM in KC, right? I'm pretty sure he has input on player personnel. But
he is now. He was not when he first came over here. John Dorsey was, and then John Dorsey was chased out of town, and we promoted Veach to general manager.
I feel like Dorsey is the guy that discovered Mahomes. Actually, maybe I'm getting my timeline wrong there, but
see, Dorsey drafted Mahomes. This is what Andy Reid and Brett Veach say. Andy Reid claims that Brett Veach was a scout at the time for Kansas City, and Brett Veach came and put the Mahomes' folder and with tape on his desk and said, "Hey, you got to check this kid out." And so he credits Veach for it. If that's the case, cool. I've never heard anything come out of John Dorsey's mouth that seems to contradict that. But obviously, I love Andy Reid and I appreciate everything he's done for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Godfrey, I'm not blinded by anything. When he first came to Kansas City, I hated the hire. I was like, he was let go from Philadelphia for a reason.
He's always been a talented offensive coach. It was just time for him to go when he was in Philadelphia because, the unfortunate death of the son. And, as a Kansas City fan, he still has had family problems even recently with the drunk driving incident. He was working 20 hours in the office is the word I got, and 4 hours of sleep. There's only so much time in a day. He was handling a lot, and he wasn't good at drafting people on the defensive side of the ball. Brian Dawkins, due to popular belief, is a Ray Rhodes draft pick, not an Andy Reid draft pick, nor Jeremiah Trotter, some of those big name guys that we were known for. And he had a Jim Johnson type of defensive coordinator who Steve Spagnuolo, I believe, is a disciple of. So when you look at the Chiefs, when they first started, what I said as an Eagles fan when he had Alex Smith was same old Andy Reid. And really the differentiating thing for him was that he got Patrick Mahomes, because if he didn't, he would have been Marty Schottenheimer 2.0.
1,000% agree. Mahomes got him over that hump.
Mahomes, to be fair, we get most people. And listen, I give Andy credit for developing him because he's really good at doing that.
Yep.
But I don't have any ill will towards the Chiefs. The only thing that drives me nuts is when people try to say, "Man, what if Philly kept Andy Reid?" I can't stand it.
Yeah. I thought Philly should have fired Andy Reid after that embarrassing. It was right after they cut T.O. And they had the biggest blowout in Monday Night Football history. Yeah. And Even though T.O. needed to go, that wasn't the case. But I mean, it was just, I thought he was going to be fired a lot sooner than what he was. I was shocked they kept him around. And
well,
then,
he turned that franchise around. People didn't want Andy Reid and that usually in Philly, when they don't want a coach, that means he might have some success, because when they do, he usually shits the bed.
yeah, it's nice to get a change of scenery sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that was what was good for Andy Reid. I don't think Philly chased him out of town at all.
Yeah. He had a farewell party where he gave a farewell speech, and that usually doesn't happen in a coach that's getting fired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a pretty amicable split. So whatever, just my thoughts on that. But Patrick, what I learned this weekend is never bet up against Patrick Mahomes, man. Just never.
Well,
I learned that after the first couple of years, because I mean, I was still like, oh, hey, it's cool. He won us a couple playoff games. We're in the conference championship. I don't think they're going to beat Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. And then they beat Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. I was like, there's no way they're going to beat the San Francisco 49ers with that defense. And then they beat San Francisco with the defense. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll stop doubting my own quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's the growing legend of Mahomes. And I'm sure we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later. But for those of you first time watching the show, this is kind of what we do. We just get on here, just throw out some topics, and then just get going with it. So I guess to get us started, Chase, I know you had one that you wanted to bring to the table, so go ahead and introduce your topic.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of touched on it a little bit. When the whole Buffalo paying fans $20 an hour to shovel the snow, there 3 or 4 feet of snow in the stadium became an issue, and I kind of touched on it just a little bit, but it's a big issue right now in Kansas City. The Truman Sports Complex has Arrowhead and Kauffman Stadium, where the Chiefs and the Royals play right now, and the Royals are wanting to move downtown and build a downtown stadium. And there is a big vote going on right now. In fact, I guess there's talk of even the Chiefs moving from Arrowhead and them getting a new stadium. And the issue is that they've introduced this bill for people to vote on, but they're not revealing everything that's included in this bill and the tax hike. Now, granted, it's in Jackson County. In Jackson County, the poverty level in Jackson County is pretty high. The income level is pretty low in Jackson County, Missouri. And so I wanted to ask, do we think it's fair for these billion-dollar owners to ask people that are living on $30,000 a year to accept a tax hike to pay for their 1.2, 1.4, 1.5 billion dollar stadiums now, which is astronomical to me, because I remember when Jerry Jones built Jerry World, or whatever he calls it, that was like the first $1 billion stadium we had heard of. And now, like after Minnesota and Atlanta and all these other Las Vegas, they're now like $1.5 billion. Is it fair for those $1 billion owners to ask common folk to pay for that?
No.
I don't think so. I mean, I have a similar situation going on with the 76ers in Philadelphia. I have a little insight into that because where I work, and the Flyers and the Sixers don't get along because Flyers haven't been doing well. The Sixers feel like they're more of a draw, and they don't like the revenue share numbers, so they want to move downtown to Chinatown, and basically would pretty much gentrify or eliminate Chinatown pretty much in Philadelphia. And it doesn't. They tried to pitch it as, revitalize downtown. I don't believe any of that anymore. I don't want to hear it will revitalize downtown. It will make money for residents and pull people out of poverty. Like, look at the LA stadium. It pushed a lot of people out of Englewood, which was a lower income area. And I don't see it doing that. And what these stadiums are nothing but a tax pass through for billionaires, right? Like, they have a ton of money. And then you're going to build stadiums without a roof. That I'm tired of that too. I don't even get a roof. For me, if I was a mayor of one of these cities, I probably would have one term if I got elected, because if this came up, I would completely be against it. As big as a football fan as I am, I don't think using public funds when there's shortages anywhere for any stadium, for a private stadium, is worth it. Unless you're going to tell me that it's entirely owned by the county itself and most of the revenue is going to go to the county, then I could see that. But these are tax pass-throughs. And on top of that, it ups the value of the club that the billionaire owns, which is great for them. But why am I paying for your investment as a taxpayer? I mean, that's my beef with a couple beefs with the Philadelphia 76ers. Josh Harris now owns the Commanders. He owns the New Jersey Devils, and he might even own another sports franchise I don't even know about. And he owns the, obviously the Sixers. And I believe he's part of fanatics.com, if I'm not mistaken there. But the point of me bringing that up is this guy really, really is just trying to increase the value of a stadium because it does look attractive. It looks cool. But as a resident in Philadelphia, they're trying to say, like, oh, you could take public transportation. It would be an absolute shit show if it was down in that part of the city. And where it's at now, it's the Philadelphia Sports Complex. There's not a ton down there outside of the stadiums. There's some factories, a casino. It's near Jersey. It's near all the major highways. It's right over a bridge. Like, you just should keep it there. You know what I mean? And I'm just tired of, and the Flyers aren't saying anything. They're owned by Comcast pretty much. And then you got, Josh Harris. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's fair. And to be, I don't know a lot about Kansas City or Missouri politics, but if it's in the poorest county, you can rest assured that it's not going to benefit the poorest residents.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not in the poorest county. The poorest county right next to it is Wyandotte County, but, it's damn near close. We've got two great stadiums at the Truman Sports Complex in Kauffman Stadium and Arrowhead. They just spent a bunch of money to renovate them. Listen, almost a little over 15 years ago, they came in and they said, hey, we're going to build the Sprint Center, which is now known as the T-Mobile Center. And we had Kemper Arena, and they told us the Sprint Center is going to be state-of-the-art. It's going to be new. It's going to hold more people. It's going to bring Kansas City a basketball team, probably a pro hockey team. It's going to do all these things, and it's going to bring all these big venues. The biggest event we get every year is the Big 12 championship tournament for March Madness, and that's it. It brought us no basketball team. It brought us no pro hockey team. It brought us it's smaller than what Kemper Arena is, but Kemper Arena is now abandoned in the West Bottoms by the Missouri River, which smells like dog shit. So nobody wants to go down there. They've been working on I-35 and I-70 for the past 20 years. They're still working on it. And then they're like, hey, downtown where Kemper Arena used to be, where it smells like dog shit because of the river, we want to build a state-of-the-art stadium for the Royals there. And everybody's like, why? Why do you want to do that? And then
the Royals aren't the type to spend a lot of money either on their franchise,
No. And the biggest issue I'm finding is on social media. There's a lot of people that are like, hey, this bill that's being introduced, I think the stadium that they're wanting to build is $1.1 billion. And the bill they want to introduce to help taxpayers pay for it is like 1.8 billion or 1.6 or 1.5, whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of people that are like, yo, tell us what else is in this bill that you want to fund, because the math is not.
You're going to have all kinds of sneaky stuff. Like they tried to sneak through bills in Philadelphia City Council. Like you're going to have all kinds of sneaky stuff. You're going to have sneaky advertising, social media campaigns to sway the public toward it if it's against it. I'm seeing that right now with the Sixers proposal. And, people that are usually okay with it aren't going to be impacted by it. And they're like, yeah, you should do it.
Yeah.
Like Philly, like I'll be impacted by it. Like that traffic's going to be insane. And, and the thing is the transportation is going to have to be good from two separate entities as far as public transportation. And it's already a smaller street because it's in the part of the city that's older, which is like right outside of Old City. And, that's old enough where like, they were writing the Declaration of Independence, like old, like that old.
Yeah.
And, it's not the same as it was back then, but still, yeah. And they don't, they try to. It's a PR campaign where they try to get this public opinion for it. And if it's a politician, like, you need to be called out for it. I mean, that's the thing. They're buying off the politician in one way or another.
Yeah. And I loved that. I was super excited to find out Godfrey was going to be on this show. And I'll tell you why. Because the night of the Super Bowl, there was a little scuffle. Obviously, the Chiefs were playing the Eagles. But Godfrey said something that stuck with me, and I knew that Godfrey would appreciate this, is Godfrey said, you know what? It's a football game. It doesn't matter. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. And that's my issue. I don't live in Jackson County. I don't care. But let me tell you, I went to LA and welcome Jory. Appreciate Jory joining us tonight. I went to LA for WrestleMania last year, and the homeless population in LA, especially by Inglewood and Compton, where the SoFi Stadium is, like, man, it must be really nice to see that beautiful, gorgeous stadium, SoFi Stadium, off to the side there, while there's homeless people all around who have no food, no place to sleep, no place to eat, and it's ridiculous. So while I'm super glad that there's people that want this, and to Godfrey's point earlier, he said, like, what they'll do is they'll make sports fans believe that this is for the best interest, and sports fans will. There's so many people who are gigantic Chiefs and Royal supporters who are said, let the people decide. Let the people decide. No, let your fandom decide, because you don't care what it does to Jackson County and the people that live there and the traffic and all that other stuff. The
Bills are a good example. Like, listen, if you're a Bills fan and they got your free ticket, good for you. But I thought everybody that was shoveling snow was a sucker.
Yeah.
I'm not shoveling shit. For as much as you guys charge for tickets, beer, concessions, parking, get someone in there to do it. I ain't doing it. I don't care. Yeah, if you want to be part of the experience, I get it. Bills Mafia, great fan base. Not a knock on them. But they're also giving up a lot of tax money for this new stadium. Like, okay. Like, take some of that money and put a snow budget out there for when that happens, since you decided to build a new stadium without a roof. You know what I mean?
Great.
If you want to play in the elements, that's fine. You're keeping the snow off the field, and you open the roof and play. Whatever. I just, and I think that's egregious to me. Like, listen, if you own an NFL franchise, you're rich. You're damn rich. The only exception is, the Green Bay Packers, the way they're structured, right? But in general, I mean, some of this is old money that's gotten passed down. Like Kansas City, the Hunts have owned it forever, right? Like, that's been passed down, and they've had it for a couple generations. And there's other people like that in the NFL, or you had enough money to buy one, right? Like, the owner of the Ravens was a billionaire before. Steve Bisciotti is his name, I believe. And even Jeffrey Lurie, who bought the Eagles. So, these are some of the most valuable sports franchises in the world. And they shouldn't need public assistance for it. And if they're going to say it creates a new job, I don't want you seeing paying someone so low on a job where now they need public assistance because you're not paying enough. And they're usually seasonal jobs too. You can't say they're good jobs when they're not year round. Like, they're part-time. So I just, the thing is I've seen this go bad for politicians. Like, I know some people, they couldn't fund schools properly in Pittsburgh, but they found money for Heinz Stadium somehow when that got built, right? So I mean, it's just it's incorrigible. I'm a huge sports fan, gigantic sports fan, but that just doesn't. It's not right. You know what I mean? We're not talking about the 60s and 70s. These are insulated profits. Like, these guys are guaranteed to make money. Like, you have to be. Literally, the last guy who bought a team was, Josh Harris, who's a multi-billionaire, or you have to be a Walmart heir, which the Denver Broncos guy was. It means he's an heir to the Walmart fortune. Stan Kroenke was married to
the Walmart
heirs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and he owns Arsenal Football Club, Colorado, I believe Avalanche. I think he owns the Nuggets, if I'm not sure. He does. He owns the Rams. This guy has got money, and he's a big time real estate guy. So, I mean, like, listen, it's a small club and it's a tax pass through. And, I just don't think I'm not for it. I'm really not because it's a bill of goods. Yeah, it's nice to have a stadium. Sometimes you need to update the stadium, but I remember stadiums being around for 35 years. Now after 20 years, you're like, let's get a new stadium.
Yeah.
That's my biggest issue is that a lot of these cities don't even allow these stadiums to become old. They feel like they have to jump the gun and create a whole new thing. And I think you guys all brought up like great points. It's a lot of these areas, the money could be used a lot better to help actual people. And yes, I get it. Your team needs to play somewhere, but most of these stadiums are still in really good condition. Most of the time, they're just updating it to put like a big video board or something to modernize it or something like that. It doesn't really affect how the actual field of play, sits within the limits or anything like that. It's just them like flexing. They have the money to do it. And yeah, so I definitely agree that they shouldn't need public funding, but you know how some sports fans are. They feel like almost like they're part of the process or something because they get a little
Yeah.
because the team tells them like, oh, with your help we built this stadium. It's like, well, yeah, you're also paying for it, like you said, Chase, with taxes.
Yeah.
That's something that's actually in effect.
Shovel my snow for me.
Yeah. Gene and I went AWOL on the Sunday morning drive when that was announced, when the Bills announced that. Gene and I went AWOL about it. And it's the same way. Like, I'm a season ticket holder for Kansas City. I love the Kansas City Chiefs. But I love the Royals. But I'm not paying for your stadium, and I don't think it's right. Shortly after the Sprint Center, the T-Mobile Center was built here in Kansas City, and we never got a pro sports team to go in there. The Kansas City School District wasn't an accredited school district for years. The Kansas City School, that's in Jackson County. How about we focus on the school? I mean, like I said, we're a little under 15 years from that. How about we focus on the public funding for schools, for the homeless? How about a pay raise? We just passed the other day for landlords not to discriminate based off of wage, which was a huge win for the people of Kansas City. Let's focus on that before we start building the Royals, who couldn't crack 30 wins last year, or barely, and before we give them a brand new stadium, when the stadium that we have is just fine. There's nothing wrong with Arrowhead and nothing wrong with Kauffman. Nothing.
If I'm not
before Godfrey, before you get into it, I was about to say, let Jory jump in here. I know you joined a little late. So the questions about stadiums being built and then these owners and franchises using public funds to help fund the building. Are you a fan of that? Do you think it's necessary?
I get why they do it, because it takes a lot of effort and funds and companies and whatever to build these stadiums. But at the same time, if you're building a stadium just because you need not because you need one, because you want one and you want to flex. No. But in the case of like Washington, they need a new stadium. That thing is falling apart. I get it. When the Georgia Dome went down and they were tearing down neighborhoods and a whole bunch of other stuff, like to put Mercedes-Benz there. I'm like, at what point do you stop moving the people who are actually paying the taxes out of the county because they keep coming elsewhere? Because you're buying them out. And then Atlanta Public Schools, again, is a bad school district. Like I know this for a fact. So it's like, there's so much more that we could really be using our time for and our funds for, like fixing roads and making sure these schools are up to standard, putting new schools in these overcrowded areas. Like, my county only had 3 high schools. There was like 3,000 kids at one. Why are we putting money towards a stadium that you don't really need, instead of getting more schools and more teachers when we have the money to. And we wonder why society is messed up right now. Because as a society, our priorities are messed up. That's my spill on it.
Yeah, Washington has needed a new stadium. I'll agree with that. Just to remind everybody, the guy who sold the Washington team, Dan Snyder, had 8 houses, 4 yachts, and stuff like that. So I didn't really feel too bad about that. And that's the perfect situation. The people in Washington D.C. High poverty level, again, low income levels in around Washington D.C. don't need to be told by Dan Snyder or anybody who owns the Commanders or the Washington football team that they need to raise their taxes so they can afford a new stadium, because the current one is falling apart.
Yeah, I mean, the FedEx Field, there probably does need a new stadium. I mean, I hear how bad it is. I hear from broadcasters, even our broadcaster for the Eagles talks about how, like, it's hard to see where you're at, the games where you're at as a broadcaster during the games. And, I've read that for a lot. I mean, point of reference, the Google rating is 4.0 for FedEx Field out of 7,195. So kind of low for a stadium, but, it's been around, cost $251 million, and it opened in 97. $458 million in today's terms, as far as how much that money would be. So I don't know, man. Listen, I understand, like, there's probably not going to be a world where there's 100% funded new stadium for a 100% funded stadium, right? Has that happened yet? Like, the owner, did Jerry Jones fund his whole stadium?
I was living in Dallas. I can't tell you.
So, but I will say that the middle ground will be, owner funds a good portion of it, and then maybe there's some public funding. But this outright public funding of the whole thing is kind of nuts to me. So, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, I felt like that was a good topic to get us started with. But I know the rest of our topics kind of get into the NFL action from this past weekend. And I feel like to kick it off, we'll start with Godfrey. Go ahead with your question.
So, what was my question again? No, just so no.
Before Godfrey gets in, I googled it real quick. The city of Arlington, because remind you, the Dallas Cowboys do not play in Dallas. They play in Arlington. Provided over $325 million, including interest, in bonds as funding, and Jones covered any cost overruns. Also, the NFL provided the Cowboys with an additional $150 million loan following its policy for facilitating financing for the construction of new stadiums. So,
yeah. So my question is, what was more impressive, the 49ers comeback win or the Lions choke job?
I mean, I'll start off. I think you have to give the Niners credit for the comeback, only because with the Lions, it was their first time this deep into the playoffs, and you could see kind of the inexperience in their play. I feel like a lot of those drops, you could say maybe the moment got too big for some of the players and they lost a little focus. I know a lot of people are killing Dan Campbell for going for it when he did. To be honest with you, he did that all year. And I feel like if he didn't do it and they still lost, people would probably kill him and say, why not stick to how you played all 17 games of the regular season? So sometimes it's going to work for you, and other times it's going to end up biting you in the butt. You just got to kind of live with it. I also thought Dan Campbell saying that it could have been their best shot. I felt like for a coach to say that, I was a little bit encouraged by that, because most times, every player thinks they're going to get back to this place. It's not guaranteed. But for the Niners to get down once again and then come back, Brock Purdy with the fourth quarter that he had, I would give them more credit than necessarily say the Lions choked it away. Although they did help, but I'll give the credit to the team that came back.
Interesting.
I feel like you're gonna disagree, Godfrey. I feel like you
I'm
will.
gonna disagree. Should I? Since it's my question, do I go last, or you guys just keep going around?
I'll go
I mean,
next.
you can choose the order. Yeah, Jory,
All
go
right,
ahead.
Jury, come off the top rope here. I know you got something for me. Let's go.
I was going to say impressive by the 49ers, but I'm so sick and tired of seeing Shanahan get away with getting his own way and other people just doing stupid stuff. Like I saw a tweet on Twitter or X that says whenever teams play either the Chiefs or the 49ers, they start doing stupid stuff. And when I mean the amount of collapse that the Lions did, the choke was just incredible to watch because I was actually rooting for them. And it was like I felt my little spirit just die. I said, I will never root for y'all again like this. I'm not doing this again. Because I had been rooting for them all year. And all year, I had defended them. I had did all this extra stuff. And then the biggest moment, you do dumb stuff because of who you're playing. You forget that this is a playoff game because you've never been there. The whole cocky waving bye-bye, I know they fried Chauncey Gardner-Johnson up. Eagles Twitter did. I definitely was on Twitter. But it was just heartbreakingly impressive to watch, if that made any sense. Like how, like why? That's exactly the only word I had after that. Because I'm like, you had a 17-point lead. But at the same time, this is the 23rd ranked defense. So it could have been expected to happen at one point, or it was a choke job, but it was an expected choke job, if you look at it that way.
Interesting. What do you say, Chase?
I mean, it definitely was a choke job. But and it is funny because I've seen it firsthand how San Francisco will let the other team, come back and not adjust, and it was weird to see them make those adjustments and Dan Campbell not make adjustments. So, a lot of, or I've seen a comment. William Mullins said, "Live by the sword, die by the sword."
Yep.
And I feel like that should be on Dan Campbell's grave. Live by the sword, die by the sword. It was interesting to watch. I was super excited at first. I got a really good friend of mine who's a Detroit Lions fan, so I was like, man, the Chiefs and the Lions. I said, this is cool. And then I was like, wow, they're
really gonna do this.
They're really gonna do this. I wanted the San Francisco 49ers to lose almost as much as I wanted the Baltimore Ravens to lose yesterday, for obvious reasons. There is obviously I don't like Broncos and Raiders fans.
Mhm.
I can't stand Cowboys fans because I lived in Dallas for 6 years. I had no quarrel, no beef, no interest in Dallas Cowboys or their fans. And then I moved down there, and now I despise their fans. Right there in the middle of that is San Francisco 49ers because of their fans. I have never, ever met a whinier fan base in my entire life. And I wanted them to lose to the Detroit Lions so bad. And yeah.
Definite choke job.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the thing. The Niners won. All good. I get that. Right.
Mhm.
But this is the problem I have. I'm going to give you a stat. And I actually put something on Facebook, and some people call me out, but I would still make the bet again. Before that, they talked about the fourth quarter struggles. He was 0-30. So history was certainly not before this game against Green Bay. So this is Green Bay. San Francisco had never won a game under Shanahan when trailing by 5 or more points entering the fourth quarter. 5 or more points. historically accurate. So now he's 2-30, right? Well, I think they tied it up before the fourth quarter. But here's the thing about that. I think Dan Campbell should have stayed with who he is, but within reason. Do you have to read the room, so to speak, for the saying, or have proper timing and know when to go for it, right? And know when not to. When you're playing for a Super Bowl berth with a franchise who's never been there, who's lost a long time, it's an extra responsibility that goes with that, right? He talks about representing the city. Now, I get that like Josh Reynolds should have caught that pass the first time they went for it.
Right.
But I even before that play, I said, "You big dummy, you should have took the 3 points because you go up by 3 scores at that point." Okay, 3 scores. Now, when they did it again, I was like, "Is this guy really going to do this?" Right? Then they, assuming they made both. Let's just say they made one. That drive at the end of the game is to tie up the game, right? Let's say they made both. They're ahead and they're applying the pressure to the Niners. The Niners historically don't play well from behind because of the type of football they play. Their defense is more effective when they're playing with a lead or a closer game. To call out Bill's a Vikings fan, so of course you say that. I know Bill is a friend of mine, but he's right. If you look at the Kirk Cousins game on Monday night, and they didn't have Justin Jefferson, they were able to handle the 49ers, and a lot of excuses were made for them. I fully expect the Chiefs to manhandle this team because if you move Brock Purdy off the spot, he's not going to play that well. He had some really bad throws. He made some timely plays, and they deserve to win it. But I really feel like the Lions let him back in the game more than the Niners took the game back. Jahmyr Gibbs making the mental mistake of taking the handoff on the wrong side of Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff also had his arm hurt a little bit. It looked like he was favoring his arm a little bit through the last portion of that game. Them making the decision to run the ball on third down instead of pass it, burning a timeout, forcing them to go for the onside kick, even though they got the touchdown, was another mistake by them, right? So there's these things where, like, I get where you're going, but, as an Eagles fan, I benefited from that. You remember the Super Bowl, Kyle, the Philly special. I was like, as a fan, I'm like, oh my God, are we really doing this right now? Like, what's going on? And I was happy they won it. But there are times in the game where they needed to tie it up or go ahead. And that was one of the when they got that fumble to win the Super Bowl, instead of going for it, to go for the jugular that some thought that maybe Dan Campbell would do, you kicked that field goal and it made it an 8-point game. And it was a long field goal. So it's about knowing this. It's situational football. And it's a trend I see with a lot of teams, which, I don't know if we have time for it, but I'll tie it into a second question. People talk about analytics. They talk about this is what the analytics say, but I don't think the analytics count for everything. And if you look at the analytics of it, if you really want to be honest with it, analytics would also say that you have a better shot of winning when you're ahead by 6 points. And, at that point, they would have been up 3 scores. So they would have needed 2 touchdowns and a field goal to catch up at that point, right? They'd have been up 17 points. That changes the game. People don't realize football is about momentum and game script, a lot of it. And if you change the game script by making the point total different, because you don't know it, so you have to account for the intangible that the analytics never account for, like a Jahmyr Gibbs fumble, right? They got 2 quick scores, right? Or a Brandon Ayuk, David Tyree type of play where he had no business catching that pass. It bounces off the gun. Defenders, man, they can't catch the ball for nothing. I don't know why you try to catch it with your face falling down, but okay, that was like a Julian Edelman type David Tyree play, and you're like, that doesn't happen, right? And the thing about the Niners, they're beatable. I always felt like this all year long, and there's been games where they have been beatable if a team plays clean football against them. The problem is the Lions came out in the second half and stopped playing clean football. They thought they won it already, and what was interesting about that is when you looked at all the Niners' faces before going into the second half, they thought they lost it already. You could tell they were like, wow, what's going on here? This is not how we expected it to go. And I think that their defense or their offense is not as multidimensional as people think. It's almost like, a strong house of cards, if you will, maybe a thicker house of cards. And like if Deebo Samuel's out there, like, oh my God, they can't win without him. And it just, I think that their defense is very susceptible on the back end. And if you have a good blitzing team like Kansas City is, well, they're going to have some trouble. And you've seen this in multiple games with the Niners this year. and they've narrowly escaped 2 defeats from 2 NFC North teams. So, people say go for the analytics in this, and they say he should be the way he says. I think there's no problem with gambling. He just needs to do smart gambling, right? And he needed to give the team another shot to prove themselves. At a certain point, the touchdown almost felt meaningless because you knew because of the way they played out the down before and had to call the timeout and ran the ball. Greg Olson called it out. The touchdown was almost meaningless. Thank you for covering the spread. I needed that for that, though. Thank you. I had the plus points. But, them doing that, it forced the onside kick, which is a very, very low percentage play these days in the NFL. Yep. And it just, I don't know how many times you get back there. Like Bill is, he says Jared Goof ain't getting that close again. Calls him Jared Goof. Vikings fan, no love there. So I will tell you that I talked to him, and he was like, "You were at the Ravens." He's like, "I don't want any of these guys to win, not the Packers or the Lions because of his rival, and that's cool. I get that." So the point of me bringing it up is, you might not get there again with Jared Goff. You don't know how often you're going to get back there. I mean, listen, as an Eagles fan, everybody thought the Eagles would be back there the very next year. Look what happened. Not even close. It's hard historically to get back to a Super Bowl when you lose. It's not easy. Historically, the Bills did it and they lost every single one. But it's not an easy thing to pull off, especially in the modern day NFL with so much I don't say transparency, so much looking for a different word here, parity in the league. It's not easy to do that. That's what what you see the Chiefs doing is truly special. And Andy Reid is a consistent coach. He's a disciplined coach. His teams are disciplined. There's a lot of good to say about Andy Reid. And Patrick Mahomes is awesome. And Travis Kelce got out of looks like Taylor Swift La La Land the last 3 weeks and decided to play football again. And good for the Chiefs because they needed him. And Rashee Rice is coming along. I think he's going to be a stud. So when the other question is analytics worth it? Is it overhyped? I mean, I used to say we only see the young coaches doing this, but now you see older coaches doing it, and you're like, you guys should know better. Like, for example, young coach that did it a lot that it might have cost him, his coaching career, which I don't think, he was a great coach, was Brendan Staley. I remember the one year, and you might remember this, Chase. There was 2 times he had the Chiefs beat dead to rights, and he let them back in the game almost identically by not kicking these field goals earlier in the game and getting
went for it on 4th down.
Yeah, and he let them back in the game. And Travis Kelce put the knife in her heart twice in overtime. And he could have won the division.
He didn't kick the field goal, and the commentators, the commentators fed into it, and the sports media fed into it. There was like, if you're playing the Chiefs, you don't, you can't beat the Chiefs by kicking field goals. Wrong. We won those games. We barely won those games in overtime. You could have beaten the Chiefs by kicking field goals, but Brandon Staley chose to go for it on 4th down.
Yeah, it's not that game that it doesn't go to overtime if they had that extra 3 points. They ran out of time because here's the thing. Time's on your side. So you don't know what's going to happen. They have a 3 and out. They fumble the ball. They peter out. They miss a field goal. I mean, think about it this way too. Jake Moody already missed a field goal in that game. So if you're putting the onus now on their field goal kicker, do they decide to go for it because they don't trust him? Because that could happen. Or do they go for it and he misses it again? And you're taking that variable out of the overall situation by saying, I'm going to go for it. Now, if Josh Reynolds catches it, all right, it's a first down. I get it. It was in his hands. The other one, though, Jared Goff was on. I can't believe you're calling a Jared Goff bootleg, right? Not with his feet. And it looked like the pocket collapsed. He's running out the pocket. He's running to the right with a hurt arm, throwing across his body to Amon St. Brown on the back end, which was a low percentage play. You know what I mean? And I felt like there were plays that they tried that, if you think about how it played out, they had the 2 flea flickers and they just missed them, right? One, it looked like his arm got hurt, and so the dude was open. Josh Reynolds come back with, and Jameson Williams couldn't come away with the ball. Now, that being said, I feel like with those plays, those, so it's good to gamble like that, but they're also momentum killers because now I think both times they did that on 2nd down, and you're looking at 3rd and long, right? So at a certain point, you have to make an adjustment as a coach and start playing the short game. I mean, as great as Kansas City is, I've seen them adjust their game. they're known for a passing team. I was always big on Isaiah Pacheco this year coming out, tough runner. And I know Andy Reid is phenomenal at drafting late round talent, as he's shown even in Philadelphia. He has been. The kid runs the ball. That's their workhorse back. And they've been running the ball more. They've been leaning on the bigs. And, they went to the 3 tight end sets. They started playing more 13 personnel. And it's worked out for him, and they've adjusted. That's how you make adjustments. And that's where I think Andy Reid has evolved as a coach, by the way, because we used to always say in Philadelphia, this dude never makes any adjustments after the scripted plays. He's screwed. Now, if you go back to KC when Alex Smith was there, I think Kansas City fans might have been saying the same thing until Patrick Mahomes came along. Everybody forgets, let's just call him like Jesus and cleats right now. Came along for this dude, okay? And, and he, you know what I mean? Like, listen, I got to give it to Patrick Mahomes. Like, that he does some stuff where I'm like, wow, and that is the standard. But I don't know. Do you guys think analytics is worth it?
You can have a mix of it. Like, I feel like analytics is a way to understand trend and everything like that. I do think that little graphic in the corner that they love to bring up when a team goes for it and always is like, go for it or no, I feel like that's doesn't serve any purpose, because like you said, one thing analytics doesn't factor for is the feel of the game, the momentum of the game, what recently happened, how the other team's doing it. It just puts in a couple of numbers and goes, oh, if you go for it here and you make it, there's this percentage chance you win the game. If you don't, there's this percentage chance, and whichever one's higher just says go for it. Okay, that's all well and good, but you still have to execute that play. And let's say something goes wrong in the lineup, or the defense does something different. It can't, account for that. So I feel like analytics is fine. And like you said, it used to be the younger coaches would do it, but now it's almost like if you're an older coach and you don't, use analytics, you kind of get forced out because they say, oh, you're not keeping up with the modern sports world. So there has to be a mix of it. You can't fully rely on it, because then you'll end up doing some crazy stuff like Staley, who wasn't like a game against the Vikings. He went for it on 4th down, like on his own 20, and they failed, and then the Vikings got an easy score out of it. Stuff like that. I don't care what analytics you're looking at. It's just a dumb play.
Yeah, and he was a bad hire. I mean, the way he got hired, like I always said, is he took a pee in a urinal next to Sean McVay, and they said he's hired. That's the way his qualifications were.
It works sometimes. It works.
Yeah. A couple guys got jobs like that working next to Sean McVay, but whatever.
And more of them will. Trust me.
Yeah.
What says you, Jory? What do you think?
Like, the big, because it's like analytics are meant to be used in conjoin with actual strategic planning and the feel of the game. Analytics, like both of y'all have already said, does not take in account of the human element. It doesn't take in account of penalties. It doesn't take in account of, or what if you just get stopped? It doesn't take account of whatever could go wrong in a play. You're supposed to use that as well as the momentum of the game, the feeling of the game, and then the common sense in a brain of a coach, because coaches have common sense, I like to think. And then you make your decision. Don't do no stupid stuff on the 10, 15, 20-yard line, and it costs you in the long run. And then you're snapping off like at reporters talking about, I don't know why you're asking me that question. Da, 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 da. I do this and da 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 da. Like, come on.
I wish I could be a reporter and not get kicked. See, the reason why I'm not is because I would get kicked out. I would be like, well, I'm asking you because the play call sucked. So it sucked,
I'm asking you
coach.
because you're not doing your job right.
It sucks. That's why I'm asking you. Yeah. Right. I mean, Chase, do you think analytics is worth it?
No. I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, it's always like my favorite thing of like, hey, did you even watch the game? Because I know the analytics say that this game was really close, but it wasn't. I know the analytics say that these teams are evenly matched up, but they weren't. And to everybody's credit, yeah, I think that analytics are good to a certain point, but momentum is a real thing. Like, and it should be a part of the analytics, but it's not. And if you're willing to throw a whole game away and put it in somebody else's hands, because the analytics told you that you're really good on fourth down this year, and you just cost yourself a season.
I mean, analytics, I think, but you see it more in baseball, but you're seeing a lot of football now too.
Yeah.
And I think in analytics, you have to have an organization that has a good mix of both, right? There's some feel out there. I mean, some of the best sports stories, would analytics have told you that Tom Brady was a good pick on the back end? I don't think so. When analytics said doing the Philly special on 4th and 1 or 4th and goal at the halftime was a good move, probably not. I mean, you saw how it went. That was all feel. He was like, Philly special, Philly. He's like, yeah, let's go for it, pretty confidently. And it, by the way, made me want to throw up that the guy that was a defensive coordinator when we did that became our defensive coordinator. So yes, Aaron Riley, it was a trash can defense, and feel confident because Vic Fangio is the godfather of the new way of the NFL, which is the bend don't break. So I'd rather have the originator. But with the analytics, like, there's so many things you guys said that's right on spot. Like, I just feel like, listen, it's good to have it, but I feel like it also is a good question of asking, what are the measurables that make up that percentage that's within the analytics, right? Because you can debate that as well, and people never go into that. Like the QBR rating, even stats to a point in the NFL, I think are liars. Like they make the QBR ratings can make you a liar. The QB rating and the QBR sometimes are good, or even their Pro Football Focus ratings, right? I'm like, oh, okay, so this guy's definitely good because of the PFF rating. All right, great. I hear you. And like I've had arguments about like, should you rush this pass rush or not? Well, they say he's good at rushing. I'm like, okay, well, the way you subdue a good edge rusher is you run right at him. But people tell me like, well, you can't because he's ranked high. I'm like, okay, sure. They were running right at Bosa yesterday, weren't they? I mean, so I don't know. Yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, listen, I feel like analytics people like to cherry pick the analytics to support the argument or the decisions that they're going to make. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of feel there too. It should always be a mix. With football, that's the reason why we play the games. Like if the analytics were so tight, then we would all know the outcome. We would all know where to go. Analytics say Lamar Jackson is a good QB, I guess, right? In certain aspects, watch a playoff game and he isn't throw in the triple coverage. I mean, can't really argue with him there after seeing that one, but I know Jury had something to say about John Harbaugh, right? But we got some time left. Let's throw you in that. We've all done our question, right? Or have we not?
Well, I'll do mine and then we'll go to Jory's because we got to give Jory the time to let that one, because mine's is simple to piggyback off of yours, Godfrey. Looking at the Lions and the Ravens, both teams that lost yesterday, who do you think has a better chance to get back to the point of the championship game? We heard Romo yesterday during the Ravens game say, oh, they'll be back. I don't know why he was so confident in saying that, but he said it. I laughed a little because I feel like that's a bold take. And then you look at the Lions, who is their first time making a deep playoff run. Next year, the expectations are going to be for them to be good. But you got to realize the other teams in the NFC now know how good the Lions are, and they will prepare for them a little bit differently. So looking at the two of them, who has a better chance to make it back to the championship game?
That's a tough question. That's a tough one. I'm going to say, because so much is going to go into like, do the Lions improve their defense in the offseason, right?
Right.
The Ravens are they're painted into a corner now. You got a new coordinator. You got to fire this one too, right? You have a really good defense. You lost a couple running backs, but with the way that team runs, Mark Andrews was hurt, so he wasn't all there. They had ample opportunity to compete in this Chiefs game, and they didn't. And they had some injuries they dealt with, but I feel like they were at full strength. Felt like they lost their identity, and they started passing the ball a lot more than they really needed to. They should have lived over the middle of the field, and I think they're, listen, if we could pull two things away from both of these teams, both high first round pick rookie draft picks cost them dearly with mental mistakes. One, taking on the wrong handoff. Zay Flowers, he had the taunting penalty. I thought that was a little stiff by the refs. I thought that was BS. Travis Kelce, sorry, I love Travis, but
He gets
Chase,
away with
he
a lot.
he was chirpy all game. I'm surprised. I don't know how he didn't get a penalty, but he did. That's your move. He pulled off. He was the first one, and then Vanoy got caught because he was the second guy. Veteran move, pulled it off. But then you have that other, that Zay Flowers, man, like diving through the end zone, rookie mistake. Maybe you don't do it that way. I mean, I can't blame him for trying, but at the end of the day, I'm looking at like it's a tough call for me. And I'm going to go with the Lions have a better shot because of the makeup of the NFC right now versus the AFC. The AFC, I think, is going to be a little bit tougher next year. And I see, coaches like Jim Harbaugh coming into LA. I mean, I think that the AFC will be a little bit tougher to navigate. And I think the reason why I picked the Ravens is I thought this year was unfolding for them to actually have a shot at winning the Super Bowl the way things played out. And they were the better team. Like the Chiefs, I thought were having a down year. Why did I think that? Because they reminded me a lot of the 03 Eagles. Really good quarterback. I said this. I swear someone stole this from us but they had really, really questionable receivers. So you have this good quarterback and one good tight end, and you have a bunch of guys on offense. And that's what it looked like. But they made the adjustments. So now they're not the 03 Eagles anymore because they made it to the Super Bowl, unlike the 03 Eagles. So, to me, the Lions got the better shot at it too. As long as they improve that defense. I mean, really, what my argument was at the beginning of the season, you should have kept DeAndre Swift and drafted like a Jalen Carter, and your defensive line would have been a lot better.
Yeah. I get that.
Jory, you go next.
Sorry about that. My dog is she knows when I'm on a podcast and she just loses her mind.
Okay.
This is hard because when you look at the NFC, like Jordan Love and the Packers, who knows how good they'll be next year. I think if the Bears make the right decisions, that's considering if the Bears make the right decisions, they could be more competitive. I don't know about the Vikings. I just don't know. Because every time I want to think they're competitive, they get competitive for a stretch, and then they start doing that whole Vikings thing that they do. They've done it all my life. And then the rest of the NFC, I would probably take Detroit to get back over Baltimore, because if you think about Baltimore, just in the division, if you'll have Deshaun Watson coming back, you will definitely have Joe Burrow coming back. You got Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. You have the Texans and the Colts, who are definitely on the uptick. I don't know what my team is going to look like. The Jaguars don't count right now. So, and then if the Bills are about to implode anyway, but Miami, this was Baltimore's chance, and they blew it, and I loved it.
Miami better get some sorcery for Harry Potter, their coach, because that dude is he is overrated. But anyway, that's the whole.
I agree with you.
It is, but he's another one of those guys who took a piss next to Sean McVay, and
no Shanahan, but I get what you're saying.
And let's say, in the same group, they all pissed in the same stool, and everybody was like, that's what we're getting. We're getting an offensive genius here.
Listen, I think he's got some merit to him, but I think Tua is only going to take you so far. He's a game manager, and if you can disrupt his flow and timing in that offense, they're done. That's simple. It's not easy. It's not hard to beat the Dolphins. Right. I just don't think it is. They got a lot of talent, but listen. Put a quarterback out there that can just put Justin Herbert on that Dolphins team. I don't know. It's just kind of wild to me.
You can cool them down to lower than 40 degrees and watch them collapse because they're not going to want to tackle.
Yeah. That's why Vic was like, I'm out of here. I'm a Phillies fan anyway. I'll go to the Eagles.
Yep.
Even though the Eagles tackling Been a
Awful.
little questionable too.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's question. It's not. It's bad. There's no question about it.
It's bad.
It was worse than XFL. Like I'm willing to say that it was bad. And I watch XFL or now whatever it's called, USFL, whatever. I watch and it was worse. There's guys that they could have brought off the street that would have showed more heart and tackling.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, Chase, who gets back, Ravens or Lions?
Man, I really wanted to make a case for the Ravens, but I mean, after you're right. I mean, I was gonna say after listening to Jory's kind of, there is a lot of unknown factors. Known factors in the AFC, also a little bit of unknown. I mean, if Buffalo is able to maintain, you've still got Josh Allen there. You've got Justin Herbert with Jim Harbaugh coming into town. You've still got Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. All those other teams that are in the mix. Whereas the only thing I'm looking at in the NFC North for Detroit is Jordan Love. If the Love boat kicks off strong next season, So I was gonna try and make a case for Baltimore, but I'm not going to. So Baltimore,
not even worth your effort.
It's tough. I mean, that division. That division.
Yeah, because like even
division.
Pittsburgh, if they get a quarterback, Tomlin won 10 games with that team. When you're dealing with Pickett and Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, if they get like a Justin Fields.
Yeah. If Justin Fields gets traded to the Steelers, yeah, absolutely.
So, Baltimore's road will definitely be much harder than the Lions for sure.
I don't know how the Bears fans or Bears are even entertaining this. Like, let someone trade you to get Caleb Williams. The Redskins, he's a Maryland kid. They would definitely do it. You keep Justin Fields, draft Marvin Harrison, and then you got DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison. And
so simple.
It's going to, and that defense is already on the upswing. Like you can, my Vikings friend listening to leaders, but the Bears can compete for the division next year. I'm going to say it right now. I don't care who the quarterback is. Bears will make the playoffs next year.
And do they still have their own pick in the first round or no?
They got the very first pick. So
I thought that. I know that was Carolina's.
Do we think Caleb Williams is a bust?
I think he cried too much.
Because his dad.
I'm not fully sold on him.
Me,
his dad's a LeVar Ball-esque type of father.
Oh, so he's definitely gonna suck. Okay.
I don't know either, but here's Godfrey's question coming back to bite us in the butt. Do we look too much into analytics and statistics? Because somebody said all USC quarterbacks suck. That's what statistics and analytics tell us.
You know what? I don't. All right. So I'll tell you why I don't agree with that. I got in this argument with a sportscaster once on WIP in Philly, and I said, when has the Alabama quarterback done anything? And he's right. I was right. They haven't. But Jalen Hurts was an Alabama quarterback, right? But with the transfer window, it's a little bit different now. There's a little bit more justice in the world about who can play. So he went to Oklahoma, did really well there, right? I wasn't sold on him until last year. The year before that, I really questioned his ability to pass. And, I'm asking, hey, what's going on with that? But when you look at it, my dog is just going berserker now. She agrees with me on the analytics.
Yeah.
Go line out. So my thing is like, listen, at the end of the day, these things have to they have to bore out. You can the analytics would say trade him and get your 5-year contract, but you don't know what he's going to be. If he comes on and shits the bed, you know what I mean? He was playing on a team with a bad defense.
A couple of years looking for another quarterback.
Yeah, he was playing on a team with a bad defense in the USC. Lincoln Riley's not a defensive guy, right? So he wasn't going to be in a good position. But on the other hand, should he have done better being on a team with an offensive coach? So it's fair to ask. I think it's not like back in the day where you have programs that have guys there for like 9,000 years and you're good like, well, he doesn't produce good quarterbacks. Because I don't think Alabama really did, because part of the reason Nick Saban didn't like Jalen Hurts is because he didn't really play the system that he wanted him to play in the way he wanted him to play it, right? Nick Saban, I think he left because he knows that he can't recruit and coach the way he used to with the transfer portal being like, Deuces, you're not going to have me on the bench for 3 years because you don't like me. I'm out. And a lot of old ball coaches are going to be extinct that way in college football. And I always hated college football for that reason, because you would see guys that were just typecasted that actually were good players because of how much power the coach has. And I think that transfer portal evens that, and the analytics say trade Caleb Williams, but the old saying goes, the devil you do know is better than the devil you don't know. Right. So.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, we got a little over 20 minutes. I think we'll spend the rest of this on Jory's question. I know it's going to be a lot to unpack with it. So, Jory,
you coming off the top rope, Jory?
I am, but I'm going to go last.
Hold on, before you go though. Before you start, I got something for you. Hold on. Let me do the sound effect. This is for. Oh no, I was going to do the bike bell, but that's not loud enough. Here, we'll start off. I'll get this bell for you. It's in here. There we go. She said in the chat she was coming hard.
I am.
All right.
This is like,
bro.
Go with the other. I'm going to let my dog out. I'll be right back. Go with these other two first.
Why is it that hardball teams continue to struggle to adjust when the lights are brightest? Kyle, I'll let you go.
I love the way you worded that question. I love the way you worded that question.
It is so appropriate, because when it comes to Harbaugh, the Ravens, it's like, they normally are run, defense really great. Defense causes turnovers. We win that way. For some reason, yesterday they tried to go 48 dropbacks with Lamar Jackson, 6 runs. Like, we all know how Lamar Jackson is a quarterback. Who out of us who would be the offensive coordinator for Lamar Jackson and go, we're going to drop back with you 48 times and ask you to throw outside the numbers several times, which we know he can't do. It was almost like Harbaugh and Monken got together and was like, this whole narrative around Lamar, we're going to try to dispel that narrative and show that he can pass the ball. Well, he can't. I don't care that he threw for almost 300 yards. He missed throws that better quarterbacks would have made. The Aguilar throw overthrew him like horribly. Even the little out route to Justice Hill overthrew him. And it's just like, I don't know.
You underthrew Isaiah Likely. That was an underthrow.
Yeah. And
that dude's bigger than all those. You put that up high and in the back of the end zone. That dude's bigger than all 3 of those DBs.
Yeah. And then
if that was a basketball game, he would have been dunking on him in the lane.
Exactly. And in the Texans game, there was a play where Bateman was running a cross route, beat his defender by a good 2-3 steps, and because Lamar threw it at his feet, he got no run after the catch. And I'm just like, I don't understand it, because Harbaugh's been there forever. I get it. They won their Super Bowl a few years ago. But if people want to think he's like this elite coach or something, he's not. Look at a lot of his playoff history. The Patriots used to beat them all the time with like gimmick plays and stuff, and he'd look over there and like he had no idea what was going on. Like when they threw the double reverse pass with Edelman, and he swore it was like a illegal formation. Everybody's like, no, it's right there in the rule book. You can do that. And then he copied it the year after, but it is what it is. So I just don't think he's good enough to get this team back there unless everything breaks their way, which technically was what was happening this year. But then they get up against a Chiefs team that understood, okay, we're just going to blitz you. Make sure you don't have those running lanes to escape the pressure and use your legs. He did it once. That 4th down play, he kept it, gained like 20 yards on it. I think Justin Reed was the one who stopped him. But other than that, they kept him in the pocket. And then the second half, they only rushed 3 or 4 at him, and he literally had no idea what to do. Because he wanted to take off, but then he didn't. And then he would just hesitate, and that's why their offense really stalled in the second half, outside of a couple of throws he made. So, I don't know. Harbaugh, whether he's just too stubborn to want to change, he's not a good a coach with adjustments at all.
So is the question: is Jim Harbaugh overrated? Is that the question, or John
No, the
Harbaugh?
question is like, why does John Harbaugh struggle?
I need
Why does John Harbaugh?
Jory.
Well, yeah, Jordan, you say.
Yeah, I need Jory to reword it the way she did because it was very ominous how she said it.
Come back.
Is it?
Rewind it back for me. Play it back.
Why is it that Harbaugh teams continue to struggle to adjust when the lights are brightest?
Well,
When the lights are brightest.
So Chase is gonna love this because I think the Chiefs are a good example. So you have a quarterback that comes out that's talented. You see that he does certain things well, right? People forget Patrick Mahomes sat for the whole first year on purpose, and I'm a big fan of that. By the way, Lamar did pretty much as well. Jalen Hurts sat most of the year. Circumstances put him into the starting role. You know, Carson Wentz disintegrating and returning to a Division II QB. So, that being said, the Ginger Jesus did not live up to the hype, unfortunately. And I was a big Wentz wagon guy. But at a certain point, you have to be able to take hard coaching. And that's what made Brady great. So hard coaching matters. I don't know if Lamar takes hard coaching. I don't know. I know Patrick Mahomes does because that's where I think Andy evolved as a coach. And people don't realize that, right? I'll give you an example. Donovan McNabb was not a pocket passer. Andy wanted to make him into a pocket passer. And that didn't work. And then you would see games where Donovan would throw it into the dirt. Now, Donovan was a far better passer than Lamar has ever been. But he would throw it into the dirt. And, you know, not everything's going to be perfect. Andy would try to make his players fit his system. When he got to KC, he started to evolve as a coach and realize, let me get players that fit my system and then make my system fit my players. And he became much better at that with Patrick Mahomes specifically. This kid's ultra talented. No, I don't want to hear anybody say, I knew about Patrick coming out of college. You're going to be good. Bullshit. No one knew it. Yeah. I just knew his daddy was a pitcher, and he probably has an arm because of it. I had him in the Dynasty League, and I cut him. I said I could redraft him, and I'm kicking my day to this self for not keeping him. But because I thought I was stealing back late. Anyway, I think John Harbaugh is a good leader of men. I think, you know, I have a CEO coach situation where I'm at. He's won a Super Bowl before, right? And I think that he needs his coordinators to do their job, and they do for the most part. But players have to make plays. And now that Lamar is paid what he's paid, they have painted themselves in a corner because they are hinged to his success. And yeah, he threw for more yards. But when I watched that game, I was like, what are they doing? It was a close game. You know, the Chiefs weren't scoring a lot of points this year. You know, to the Chiefs' credit, you know, he knocked that ball out before the goal line. It was a great play. I forget who it was, number 38. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
L'Jarius Sneed.
L'Jarius Sneed made a great play. And, you know, Steve Spagnuolo is an unheralded coach this year. He has done wonders with that defense. Good thing they got Chris Jones happy because that's the key. But, you know, the thing about that is when you look at that and you look at the Ravens, they made the adjustment on defense because that was a big problem last year, but they didn't really they passed for more yards, but they really didn't make the adjustment they needed to do on offense. And you got to play within your capabilities. And I really don't think that they did that in the way they approached this game, right? Like stay to the middle of the field, have Lamar run it, make the Chiefs come to you and play, slow the game down, right? You know, they were killing them on third down, and they had a lot of dumb penalties. And you know that if that's going to happen, it's showing that, you know, he's not able to reel in his players' emotions, right? And I think that's a big problem in Baltimore that a lot of people are talking about. Harbaugh's a great coach, and it's going to be hard to get him out of there because he has such a long record of success. That's hard when there's a coach like that around. But Lamar might break his career because people don't want to hear this, especially Baltimore fans. I was more high on him this season. I was like, okay, I see a little bit of differences. But then when it came down to the playoff game where he needed to prove himself, you know, he showed he wasn't a Maserati. He was a Chevy Impala at best, right? Like, And I'm not talking about the 5.3 V8 one. I'm talking about the economy Chevy Impala, right? So I mean, let's say it was a Chevy Malibu, all right? And the thing is if you could say I'm gonna beat what everybody else is saying, and if they got caught into that, shame on them, because it's about the W at the end of the day, and winners win. Winners find ways to win. If you look at Brady when he lost, not when he lost, when he won, he had some awful playoff games. That defense bailed his ass out a lot, and that's where Belichick came in, right? So there's got to be a partnership of ability there, right? And like the partnership has to be the defense is going to bail me out, and I'm going to bail them out with what I'm good at. And it felt like they were trying to be something that they're not, and you see that in life. A manager comes in, coordinator, they got to put their stamp on it. They got to put their flag. I'm Christopher Columbus. I discovered it first, whatever you want to call it. And when I look at the Ravens, that's really what the problem is there, because he's not coaching on either side of the ball. So now he's got to hold it in the check. I mean, what I don't know. They have painted themselves into a corner. You got rid of Greg Roman, who I thought was a decent coordinator. I would hope he would come to the Eagles personally. So that wasn't it. So what's the excuse now? Like, and this is where I hope the reporting's getting better, because if I was a reporter, I would be all over them. Well, this is the adjustment to be made. Where do you guys go from here? What can you do better? And the throws, I almost feel like won't get talked about as much, because it's like, oh, you're just assuming Lamar can't pass. No, I'm seeing what I see on film. Yeah. And I think part of that, and you guys would correct me wrong, is people are sensitive to it because of the old adage, how people used to try to say a black quarterback can't win a Super Bowl. I'm not a believer in that, obviously. Most people aren't these days, but old guys used to try to say that. And that's not where we're going with this. Mahomes is half black, by the way. I don't know if anybody know that. Like, his dad is African-American Major League Baseball pitcher. So, he has won multiple Super Bowls.
I do think with Lamar, when he first came out, a lot of them were talking about, they
wanted him to be a running back.
A receiver. I think a wide receiver.
People really
a wide receiver or a running back, because the narrative was that running black quarterbacks couldn't win big football games. And that's not the case in Baltimore at all.
Yeah. I'm going to say it now. Older white guys say that, like the Chicago fans.
Absolutely.
And this is why that's changed. Chicago Bears fans are those guys who are, you need a cloud of dust and, you can't pass the ball. No. Justin Fields can pass the rock. Where it has evolved is, one, back in the day, a pro coach would never dream of running a college-style offense. They would look down upon it. They would never do it, right? Now they will. And so you have people that are coming in these offenses that could be successful now. And, it's not really a color thing, but I still feel that tension with the fans. As a Eagles fan, I felt that tension with Jalen Hurts. And it used to annoy me, because I'm like, no, I'm not coming on this guy because of his color. I'm coming on him because I haven't seen him really do the passing thing. And then when he showed it to me, I've seen people. I said the same thing about Josh Allen, and he's as white as snow. Okay. The dude played in Missouri. I was like, yo, this dude can't pass. All right. And then Dable came by and he was like, yo, he coached him hard, and all of a sudden he could pass now. He couldn't pass for nothing before Brian Dable. It was atrocious. I remember that Texans game, that playoff game he gave away. So to me, when I look at that kind of stuff, I'm keeping eyes on football. I'm just bringing it up because I definitely think when people talk about certain quarterbacks, they won't say it, but that's an underlying reason behind some people's staunch opinion on something, because they're almost taking a political stance instead of an X's and O's stance. And that's for both sides of the fence here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
1,000%.
I have relatives that I yell about it all the time. They'll try to whisper to me. I'm like, don't come at me with that noise. That, and I just feel like that here with the Lamar thing, there's a built-in defense, but he really needs to be better at passing the ball. And that's really the only way that they're going to be successful, if it's going to be on Lamar's shoulders, because listen, they showed he was bad against the blitz. That was the big problem.
And that's what Kansas City
Jalen
did
Hurts was awful against the blitz this year. As an Eagles fan, we know that. So then is it the coaching? Is it the scheme? Or is he not recognizing the blitz? It's for both of them. They weren't recognizing the blitz. Why is that? I don't know. Certain guys want to make one read and be out, make two reads and be out. And that's where the hard coaching comes in. You have to break those habits. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Brady wasn't great right away. he was a game manager for the first half of his career. He really was.
Godfrey, 1 second, because we only have like 10 minutes left. I want to get Chase and Jory to, Jory especially because it is her question. But I mean, Chase.
I was thinking about Jory's question all day. She had me all riled up about it. I was like, all right.
I don't know.
I was thinking about this last night.
No, I'll tell you real quick. I mean, I agree with everything that Godfrey said. You look at. I love the way Jory worded it. When the lights are the brightest, because if you go back to the Harbaugh Bowl 12 years ago and the lights went out, one Harbaugh choked and the other one benefited from it. So I thought that was interesting how she worded that. The Chiefs. It was weird to watch them because Paul Heyman said in the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD, he said, we accentuated the positives and hid the negatives. Well, Baltimore didn't do a good job of that. Mm-hmm. The positives, you've got an MVP caliber quarterback that can run all over the field. And from a Chiefs perspective, Willie Gay was out, who is our quarterback spy. Don't get me wrong, Drew Tranquill and Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton's fantastic. Those two guys are fantastic. But still, that middle of the field is the Chiefs' defense weakness. And you watched Lamar run a couple of times and pick up some good first downs, and they got away from it. They got away from him doing that under pressure and throwing in the middle and whatnot. And
instead, you want him to be the Tasmanian devil, Taz from ECW, not Sandman. And he looked like Sandman out there.
Yeah. And Lamar can handle those tackles, can handle those hits from small guys like Trent McDuffie, Eric Reed and whatnot. And I don't know why we didn't see him or Josh Allen the previous week barrel down and use their running ability to go after him. And that's on the coaches. You wanted Lamar to be throwing down the sideline. You were hoping for a 400-yard game, and it wasn't going to happen. And they didn't adjust. And to Jory's point, like I mentioned, when we saw the Harbaugh Bowl, one Harbaugh brother adjusted and the other one didn't, and lost a football game because of it.
Listen,
when the lights went out.
How you beat the Chiefs, and it's always been like this: run the ball, keep Mahomes off the field, and run the ball. They haven't been scored as much this year because they haven't been as dynamic in the passing game. So that really is a recipe to beat them, and you saw it. I mean, there are certain teams that beat them. Like, look what the Broncos did this year when they beat them. I mean, I just think that's why coaches just can't get out of their own way. That's all. I just think sometimes they just. They go Dan Campbell, like, it's 18 on the blackjack table. Hit me.
All right, Jory. The floor is yours. You have the rest of the episode to just let loose. Go ahead.
Okay, so Harbaugh has been the coach of this team since 2008. Don't look at me like that. My dog needs attention, clearly. And he's 13-10 in the playoffs since then. And he's been one and done 3 times since 2018. And he's gotten passes because of Lamar's not there and injuries and whatever. But you see the lack of adjustments that plague them throughout the season, the regular and the postseason. And the postseason is usually when your weaknesses get exaggerated, especially in key moments. If you don't adjust, and that is one of your greatest weaknesses, there will be a team that can expose that. And there's been multiple examples of that. Like 2019. Mind you, I got a whole list right here. Right here. 2019 versus the Titans. They did not adjust to stop the run. And you kept letting Lamar throw it away. And what did he do? He turned it over. And you never adjusted to what Tennessee was doing. You lost 28-12. I know. I'm the Titans fan. I'm gonna remember that game. 2020 versus the Bills. Once the Bills made adjustments to stop Lamar from running around like a chicken with his head cut off. The Ravens as a whole were stuck in a blender. They never adjusted. 2018, the Chargers. Once the Chargers keyed in on Lamar, got him to stop running, it was over. And we're not even going to talk about the recent ones. It happened in 2014. Like, you had a two touchdown lead twice against the Patriots. What happened? Kyle, you know exactly what happened.
I remember that game very well, yes.
But instead of running the ball a little bit more, you decided to let Flacco air it out. And how did that game end? On a pick. This year versus the Chiefs, when it was clear that running would give you some wiggle room and will give you some wiggle room, and you kept attacking a good secondary like that was going to work with somebody who struggles with throwing the football.
Great secondary.
Great secondary.
Yep.
And then you got the Steelers game in 2011. Ray Rice fumbled. They never regained. That's exactly when the switch flipped. They would never be able to readjust. It's like this is a pattern that has spanned decades. It's a pattern. Lack of adjustments, complacency. It falls on the head coach's shoulders. You can't keep replacing coordinators. And once the organization realizes what the actual issue is, and they're not afraid to rip the Band-Aid off, until then, they will always be like this. Frauds. Front-running frauds.
Jury, you could be right. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. A lot. And, you know, if he doesn't win that one Super Bowl, he might get the Marty Schottenheimer award. That's my award that I give out. You know, win the regular season, losing the playoffs. Yep. And you're right about that, Jury. Like, there's something you said there, and it totally slipped my mind. But, you know,
That is the pattern.
Yeah, that's what it was. So I know a lot of Ravens fans, because down where I live in PA, you know, you might get Steelers fans, but, you know, down below us, you could be like a Ravens fan. You could be a Commanders fan. You got your Steelers fans. And every Ravens fan that I talked to is a long-time fan. When I asked them about their team at the beginning of the season, they were like, no, I'm not a fan of John Harbaugh, because they're following the same pattern that the Steelers are. I argue that the Steelers don't have the quarterback, but they're like, they don't see a way out, right? And that was always my nightmare with Jalen Hurts, that we would get a guy that would just get us right there at the cusp and can't get us over the edge, right? Because there's a recipe to win that way in the NFL. But I agree with you, Jerry. Like, you're pretty spot on. It is a pattern, and I do believe that Ravens fans are growing weary of the pattern. And if it happens again next year, I think John Harbaugh will no longer be a coach in Baltimore.
Remember that one Super Bowl that we talked about. That Super Bowl might not be a thing had the lights not went out in the Superdome for how long was it? 30 minutes? 40 minutes?
It was a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. That changed the complete aspect of the game.
Or deer antler spray taken by Ray Lewis before the end of the season that they got on a recorded line, but he retired so that it really mattered. You know, people forget about that one. Hey, you got any deer antler spray? Oh yeah. It's and anytime you ask him about it, he's like, God's great. I'm like, stop with that. Yeah.
He does the same thing when somebody asks him about the murder.
Oh yeah, God's good. Yeah, okay.
All right.
Did you have anything to do with that murder? No. My bodyguards did, but God is amazing. God is amazing.
Ray Lewis.
He's as slick as a politician when it comes like that.
And they had Ray Lewis and all them folks on that sideline like they were supposed to do anything.
Yeah,
what were they supposed to do? Tell the players to play harder? They should have told the coach to tighten up.
Yeah, Terrell Suggs came out there like it was Spaceballs with the shorts ring, showing his showing his Super Bowl ring. I'm like, what's that gonna do? Are you gonna go punch Mahomes in the forehead? Like, I don't. What's that gonna do?
What is that gonna do? Magic powers willing the Ravens to a Super Bowl? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. They're pathetic. I can't.
Yeah, Ray Lewis can dance like that and do that stupid little dance that he does all he wants. They still lost.
Certain players need hard coaching, and I think Lamar has a high football IQ, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't need to be polished, a finished product. And you know, I feel like the Eagles made that mistake with Jalen Hurts this year. They thought he was a finished product. They're like, here's the keys. We don't need to make any adjustments. Oh, no, you did. And, I think the same thing with Lamar. Like, he's not a finished product. I mean, Mahomes is as close to finished product as there is, and they're still thinking he has to prove on. But he's with one of the greatest QB coaches of all time in Andy Reid. So he's going to be polished. If not the greatest QB coach of all time.
I want to make this last point before we close out, Kyle.
Yeah, real quick.
I think Lamar has to do a little bit of maturing left too, because remind you, there was a lot of speculation, like if he was sitting out that wild card playoff game a couple seasons ago, because he was waiting to get a new deal, and everybody acted like, hey, he even acted like, oh, now that I got this new deal, like now it's on Ravens country, like now we're gonna go win us a championship. Now that I got my new deal. And it's like, dude, that
was bullshit.
I'm all for players getting their monies. I will argue that any day of the week. Take a billionaire for every cent he's worth. I don't care. Eat the rich. Okay. I'm an anarchist at heart. Burn it all down. But dude, to set out a playoff game because of a minor injury, because you were trying to get a bigger contract. If I'm
the owner, I was out. I'll be out at that point.
Yeah. Anybody would have. Yeah. Anybody would have. But Ozzie Newsome just thought, yeah, we're gonna pay Lamar every penny he's worth. And
Ravens are painted into a corner. I mean, there's nothing they could do.
Yeah. Yes. I wanted to make that point before we closed out.
No, that was a good point. But look, I mean, this is a conversation that we could probably go on and on about. Maybe we revisit it next week. I don't know. I'm sure Jory's got more on that notes. I know she got a note, more stats and everything, so we could probably come back to this next week. But
also, I want to make one of those memes. Y'all ever seen that meme with the 5 or 6 African American guys and a little white girl on the couch? I want to make a meme with Jordan. Shut up, Kyle. Yeah. I want to make one with Jordan. I want to make one with Jordan as the little girl on the couch, and us all standing behind the couch. That was wrong.
Somebody tell little ditzy Raven fans that their quarterback is not since sliced bread. Like, calm down.
Great show tonight, guys. Great show tonight.
I definitely agree. I mean, look, before we got here, I gotta say, Godfrey, appreciate you coming on. I mean, anytime might have to have you on again because I feel like you brought it tonight.
Yeah, let me know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll definitely let you know. So this has been Cheap Seats. Appreciate everybody in the chat. For Godfrey, Chase, Jory, and myself, we'll see you next week. Make sure you like and subscribe, follow Sports Empire Network for all the great shows that we have on here. But I mean, I guess that's it. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you next week.